Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This is I hate to say it, it's our second to last in our virtual roundtable series for this summer. We've really enjoyed regularly meeting with all of you to talk about different topics. Today is a session I'm really excited about because we are going to feature some of our liaisons. We have 3 liaisons who are going to talk today about their experience with TWC, answer questions you have. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As I'm going through sort of the housekeeping rules, if people want to share where they're joining us from, that would be awesome. So this session will be recorded. We are going to post it on our website and share with future new liaisons. With that, if you don't want to be in the recording, please just have your video turned off. No hard feelings at all. Right now, everyone is muted, but a good portion of this roundtable series will be discussion based. So during that time, you'll have the ability to unmute yourself, and we ask that you please speak up with questions. Also, while we are featuring 3 of our liaisons today, all of you are really great champions on campus. So if you have tips you want to share, if you have something you want to bring up, please feel free to do that as well. Discussion is really encouraged. And last but not least, Reed May is on the line today, and he's helping with tech support. So if you have any issues, just feel free to write it in the chat or send him a message. Speaking of Reed, he's going to walk us through an overview of our internship programs. Many of you have worked with us for a long time, so you're very familiar with these programs. But as you all know, with COVID, since March, we've really had to and had the opportunity to be creative and rethink how we're doing things. So Reed is just going to give a brief overview of where we're at now.
Thanks, Mari. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all here today. We're glad to be with you and glad to have the chance to share a bit about where things stand and also hear from 3 great liaisons about their experiences. As Mari said, it's been a unique year for us. We've been adjusting on the fly as conditions evolve in regard to COVID. So I think, as everyone knows at this point, our spring semester, the in-person experience ended a little bit early. And because of the sort of continuing uncertainty in the early part of the summer, late spring, early summer, our summer program took place online in its entirety. So we didn't have any students living with us in DC. They all participated from home. We had about 220 students participate in our summer virtual program, which was a lower number than we're accustomed to when we can have students in DC. But all in all, given how quickly things changed and how quickly we had to pivot, we were pretty pleased with that result. And we're also getting results back from our surveys of our summer student body. And so far, we're getting a lot of positive feedback. Students who've suggested that the experience was on par with an in-person internship experience, that they benefited from their career readiness programming, and the vast majority of students, 90+%, saying that they did feel like the virtual internship program really did help them better prepare for life after graduation, which is ultimately the most important metric for the Washington Center. In terms of what the program is going to look like this fall, we are offering sort of our standard in-person academic internship program here in Washington, D.C. For the most part, it looks the same as what you would typically expect in terms of the components that are included. So everyone will be interning, they'll be taking an evening course, and then they'll be participating in sort of a modified version of our career readiness programming that, instead of being fixed to Friday mornings, will be sprinkled throughout the week in a series of sort of sessions or modules that students can select into. They have a minimum number that they're required to attend, but they're given a lot of choice in that regard. And they'll also have the option to spend some time working one-on-one with a career advisor. Both the evening course and the programming, the career readiness programming that takes place throughout the week, will be virtual. So even though we are going to have some students living with us in DC, in order to best provide for distancing and also reflecting the relative size of our classroom spaces, it was just best for us to conduct those sessions online. It also means that our virtual participants, people who are not living in DC with us, can join our quote unquote in-person participants for those sessions from wherever they are. We have sort of a mix of internship situations, both in DC and for students who are fully virtual. It essentially breaks down into sort of three different modalities. So we have students who are going to live with us in Washington, and we'll have some in-person internship experiences. To be perfectly honest, that's the smallest number. Most of our internship sites this fall have said that they are like many of us, staying remote, and therefore their interns need to stay remote as well. So we have a larger number of in-person interns this fall, and by in-person I mean living with us in Washington, whose internships will actually be online. And so while they'll be in DC, and we're going to work with them to help them have the best in DC experience they possibly can given the conditions, the majority of their activities will be virtual from the residential and academic facility in Noma. The virtual internship program that you see referred to on the screen really refers to students who are virtual in the truest sense. They're not living with us in DC. They're participating entirely from home or their campus, wherever they're going to be this fall. And their internship, along with their evening course and their career readiness programming, will take place online. We're also going to we're continuing to try to evolve our options for virtual networking and other ways to connect with what's going on in DC. We recognize that being here is typically a big part of the experience, and we know that for students who were hoping to come to DC but now aren't able to, there may be a little bit of a sense of loss there. And so we're going to try to do whatever we can to replicate that. We got some good feedback from summer students about how we can maybe connect the students better to the happenings in Washington. And so we're looking forward to incorporating more of that this fall for our virtual program participants. One last thing is that we're looking ahead now to spring, and I'd say at this moment, we don't know exactly what things will look like in the spring. We're hoping the fall goes well. We're hoping that the result of the fall gives us more confidence in being able to host even more students in DC next spring. But we're really proceeding from a position of maximum flexibility. So our plans at this point are to continue to offer students the option to live in DC and hopefully intern in person, to live in DC but intern virtually. And a lot of that's dependent on, again, internship site preferences, but then also to participate in a completely virtual modality. So that's kind of a rundown of where we are right now. And of course, we're happy to talk more about that as the presentation goes on.
Thanks, Reed. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and talk about the liaisons who we are presenting with today. We have three really wonderful liaisons. They all come from different universities, different roles, and so I'm excited to hear what they have to share with you all. The first is Dr. Michael Rodriguez. Michael is an associate professor of political science at Stockton University. Along with teaching courses, Michael is coordinator of the Washington Internship Program, or TWC, and he has served as liaison since 2006. As liaison, Michael has supported over 500 students in attending TWC programs. I double-checked that this morning. It is over 500. And also, yesterday was Michael's birthday, if anybody wants to give him a shout out. Along with Michael, we have Paula DiNardo here today. Paula is joining us from the University of New Hampshire, where she has been at over 30 years. She serves in the Division of Academic Success at UNH and runs several domestic study away and academic programs, including TWC, National Student Exchange, and the NHCUC State Exchange. Paula is currently a doctoral candidate in higher education at UNH, and she's planning to research first-generation students in high-impact practices. Paula has been a TWC liaison since 2005. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Kelsey Thompson joining us from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, where she works as the Associate Director of Career and Professional Development. Among other responsibilities, Kelsey provides career coaching and advising to undergraduate, graduate, and alumni from 130 plus majors. Kelsey has served as TWC liaison as 2019, and while that seems recent, I can tell you she really hit the ground running and just has been such a support in the last year. So without further ado, I'm going to start the discussion portion of today. We do have a few questions prepared for Michael, Kelsey, and Paula, but really this session is about you all speaking with each other. So as you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, feel free to speak up. Also, while we are highlighting three liaisons today, you all have expertise. So if you have advice you want to share, something that's worked on your campus, a challenge you faced, please feel free to share that as well. So to get us started, maybe Michael, if you want to start, I would just love to hear a little bit about what your experience has been as a TWC liaison.
Yes, so as a professor and as somebody who has this administrative role of coordinating the Washington Internship Program, it's very important to me that we have institutional buy-in from the faculty, from staff, from alums. That makes the position much more manageable because it is a part of what I do, a very small part, but it's a very important part. And also, we've had institutional buy-in from the administration. This is a priority program for the university. So there are certain resources that are attached to this position, and I get a lot of support. So I think that's made it a successful program. So it's not a function of what I do necessarily, it's really a function of how we're structured. And I think for institutions, it's very important to establish buy-in from our peers, from other faculty, administrators, from students, from alums, and have that be the pipeline that feeds students into the internship program. So it's not that it makes it easy, it just makes it much more manageable as a successful program. And I think faculty that have a strong buy-in, they also mentor their students and they advise them through the process of applying and afterwards. So I can't say that this is an office. It's really a program that cuts across the university, and many people are part of it. So I'm very proud of that. And I think that makes a big difference for an institution, is for it to be institution-wide and for there to be buy-in across the university.
Thanks, Michael. I 100% agree and have felt that when working with Stockton. Paula, do you want to walk us through an overview of your experience so far as a liaison?
Sure. I'm a staff member, and it's a whole different set of challenges, strengths and weaknesses. And I've often said that to TWC staff, is that faculty have access to certain things that I don't have, but on the other hand, I have access to marketing and other processes that are easier for me than a faculty member. What I really need to do is constantly network on my own campus. That buy-in that Michael was talking about is even more important for me because I don't have the status of faculty. So I rely on the friendships and relationships I've built. And it's frustrating, but there's turnover in the administration. And as soon as I get somebody who's a big champion, it seems like they move on or they turn to another position. But I have made it my goal to network with the people who are on the ground directly with the students, the academic advisors, and we have professional advisors, hall directors, the people that are seeing students day in and day out and talking with them informally, who could refer students to me. And I maintain those relationships constantly, checking in with people. The challenge of being virtual meant that I was just constantly saying, let's have coffee over Zoom, let's have a drink tonight, with people that are all over the campus, because I'm a one-woman show, and those relationships are really important to me. So I did a lot of outreach, a lot of drinking online. Sorry, am I supposed to say that?
It's okay.
But as a staff member, the things that I see as my strengths are being able to market, spend a lot of time on marketing, desktop publishing, social media, advising software that we have, things that I think are a little easier for a staff member than a faculty to spend some time digging around in those kind of things, printing out reports and going into advising staff meetings, presenting in classrooms. I'm able to do a lot of that. So that's a benefit of my program. I am a one-woman show with a couple of work study students. I've been captain of the ship here in this office. So it's been exciting. Thanks.
Well, you're a wonderful captain. We feel very lucky to have you working with us. And then Kelsey, do you want to give a little overview of your year as a TWC liaison so far and what it's been like?
I know, one whole year. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey. I work at IUP. So I've only been a liaison for about a year currently. I took over for a colleague of mine who retired last summer. Her name was Diane Stipchak, and she really paved the way for me to kind of step in and hit the ground running. She spent a long time, for as long as she was in the office, really trying to promote the program and build those relationships on campus. As Paula was saying, that institutional buy-in and having those faculty relationships has really been the key to our success and how we're able to have so many students participate and reach out about the Washington Center. So I feel very fortunate because I feel like I walked into a pretty good situation here, but it's certainly been something that we're trying to keep up with, because Diane really paved the way for us to have TWC be an internship program that is known campus-wide. So it's definitely been a little bit of a challenge because I certainly had other things that I was doing. So adding this on top of it was a big adjustment, because there are some definitely pieces to it that take a lot of time, and I wanted to do it justice and make sure that, you know, I was providing a good opportunity for students and letting them know about it. So it's been a challenge, but overall it's been really positive. The TWC staff has been awesome this first year. I know I've worked really closely with Blair Foreman, who is not on the call, but she has been fantastic and a great resource for me if I've had questions, concerns. I kind of joke sometimes she probably like gets a little twitch when she sees an email come in for me, because I'm constantly like, Blair, what's going on? But the support's been awesome as well, because as I said, with that transition, there were some things that Diane took with her that no one else in the office knew. So having the support of TWC to make sure that everything got done has been really helpful.
I'm so happy to hear that. Blair is wonderful. I will second that. And liaison transitions are hard. I think a lot of our liaisons here on this call, you guys are very dedicated. And so on our team, it's a lot of pressure as well to just make sure that you guys are aware of everything. And especially our new liaisons this year, I think it's a hard year to start with us with COVID. So my hat is off to, I know we have a few other new liaisons joining us, so my hat is off to all of you. So we have a few other questions. One, you guys sort of touched on this, but I'd love if you could dive into it a little more. One of the reasons we chose to highlight all of you is because you come from different parts of campus. And one of the things I've loved with working with TWC is we work with people all across the campus, be it study abroad, study away, career services, faculty, deans, provosts, you name it, we work with them. And so I'd love to hear, one, what are the challenges in your role that you found really difficult? And then two, advice you have for another liaison who's in a similar office to you.
I can go first, just because it's fresh on the brain right now. It certainly was a challenge, I think, taking this on this year in particular, just because there were a lot of details that I was trying to wrap my head around, and then obviously COVID kind of threw a wrench in that. But one thing at my university, so I work in the Career Center, and we have a decentralized internship model at IUP. So most internship opportunities are filtered through specific academic departments. They all have different requirements. Some of them have different processes. So it was hard to manage that, because I'm having students come from comm media, business, political science, criminology, and so trying to balance those conversations with those students, making sure that they were talking with their department chairs, the department chairs knew what was going on. I think I found myself being a middleman of sorts between students, departments, the bursar's office, making sure that all of that back end stuff was taken care of. So I think, you know, selling TWC is easy for me. It's fun to talk about. I wholeheartedly believe in the program, and if I was a student, I'd go back and do it in a second. So I don't have a problem selling the program, and I know that students that we have that come back are real champions for other students telling about their experience. We try to invite them for panels to share what they enjoyed and tips and tricks. But I find that just the way that our university is set up, which is, I can't control that obviously, does make it a little bit of a challenge in this role in particular, just balancing the communication and the outreach and everything that has to happen.
We have two organizing principles that I think matter tremendously for us at Stockton in terms of how we structure the program. And one of them is that it is comparable to being at Stockton for a semester financially. So we try to incorporate some stipends and financial aid, and we try to structure the financial aid package so that it makes it comparable in terms of cost for students to be in DC as it would be back in Stockton. And the other one is that it's comparable in terms of any other semester for purposes of academic credit. A lot of students think that if they do the internship program, is going to be an additional semester, additional credits, or credits that they cannot use for graduation requirements. So we make it very clear that indeed this is one of their semesters. It should not slow down their timeline for graduation. And I spend a great deal of time, essentially academic advising, to make sure that the credits, and we give 16 credits. Our courses are 4 credits for each course, so they get 16 credits. So we plug in those credits into their, what we call degree work. So it's an audit of their transcript. And that helps a lot, because I think a lot of students simply wouldn't go to Washington if it in fact it was an additional semester, or if it slowed them down. So those two principles, I think, have made a big difference. And I'm not sure how easy it is to sort of approximate those two principles at other institutions, but those have been the ones that I've keyed in on to make the program work for a lot of our students. Now, one of the challenges is that there's still this idea, this misconception, that this program is for people in political science, for people in the social sciences, but the opportunities are there for all majors. So I spend a great deal of time trying to talk to students in different programs, different majors. We have programs, not departments. So I go to different programs and try to impress upon them that this is an opportunity not just for people in the social sciences or in politics, but across the board. So we've got people in computer science, physics, visual arts, all those, not many, but we have had some. Now, one challenge that probably occurs in many other institutions is that sometimes curricular requirements make it almost impossible, if not very difficult, for students to take a semester and go to Washington and use those credits for graduation purposes. That's an ongoing challenge. And I've had to have conversations at the provost level, at the dean's level, to try to make it easier for students to go to Washington and use those credits. One quick example: all majors at Stockton have a capstone seminar. And only one program at my university allows 4 credits from the internship program to be used for the capstone seminar. It's not political science, it's communications. So I'm trying to get that to be more of a standard that the other programs can embrace. And if that happens, I can assure you that many more students would be more likely to go to Washington for a semester.
Michael, I do have a question. So you mentioned you offer 16 credit hours. Does that mean it's a fixed 16 credit hours, or maybe it could be less?
No, it is 16 credits, and there's actually an acronym, a course acronym, and a number that they register for, and these are basically shell credits, so that they can be applied across the curriculum. They used to be political science credits, and then there was some issues, applying political science credits to, say, business. Several years ago, we changed the acronym to WASH, W-A-S-H, and attached a number and a course title. And for the internship program, they get 8 credits. For the evening course, you get 4 credits. And then what I call the Friday stuff that now is being dispersed across the week, the career development and the lecture series, what used to be the civic engagement project, all those additional things, that was 4 credits as well. Well, that is 4 credits. I add more work to that. They have to do some papers, some essays, and I use Blackboard to post all the assignments. And they upload all their assignments and papers to Blackboard, so they get 4 credits for that. So it's 16 credits, but the acronym is very specific to this program, and they can be applied to any other major across the university.
Okay, I think our program at UCF is maybe a little bit different. I'm a faculty with the experiential learning at UCF. But I'm the liaison, campus liaison for TWC. But I do kind of process the student approval and stuff like that for the whole university. But I do send students to the departments, because our experiential learning program internship credits will count only towards general electives.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, but if the student wants restricted elective, they would have to go through the program, the departments. Now, with our program, I think one of the challenges is probably some degrees, some majors, they do not allow, they do not have room for internship credits, such as, for example, engineering majors. They just don't have room. But I guess it's part of the state funding requirement and so on, and also easier for me to track the student is we require student to register at least, the experience at least for 1 credit hour. It has to be internship credit. So that way also allows me to track. But the problem, I think another challenge is when the student, they go to the department, because I'm not the instructor of record, so sometimes it's difficult to really see what's going on with the student. I run into couple issues with students, but that's because, you know, we were converting the on-site internship to virtual. And so, you know, during that transition, it was a little bit chaotic. So, so we ran into some issues, but it's not huge. But again, I think our flexibility that allows me and allows the student to really appropriately to use the credit hours. So that way, you know, they don't have anything wasted.
If I may, can I ask how many of your institutions treat the Washington credits as transfer credits as opposed to home institution
No,
credits?
it's not. No, it's not transfer credit. They have to be enrolled at UCF courses. So
Okay.
either through the departments, so for example, political science and so on. Now, like I said, engineering, they don't really have internship program or internship courses. So they'll be enrolled in my experiential learning internship courses. So
Sure.
those students, if they are in my course, then I'm the instructor of record. So I monitor those students' activities and assignments and so on. But if they go through the departments, once I process their application, approve them, I have some kind of tracking mechanism. But then once they are enrolled through the departments, I don't really have a whole lot of control in what they do over there. And I don't dictate what the internship course instructor, what they do, what assignment they need to do. It's their course, so I don't say anything. But I do, at the end of the semester, I do download the students' portfolio from TWC and whatever the activity they have done and grades, and I send it to their instructors in the department. So that way, you know, they might consider that as part of their course assignment, course requirement. For me, in my course, if students they register only 1 credit because that's all they need, or 3 credit hours or 6 credit hours, then I will consider what kind of assignment that they need to do. And TWC portfolio is part of the assignment. I don't want to overlap, you know, to make them redo it twice. So, you know, that's a big part of my course assignment. But the way I treat the whole, I guess I treat the whole TWC internship experience as a whole package. That includes the credit hours they need, that includes the evening courses they attend, and also the Friday development activities and so on. The hours they put in, everything that they do is part of the internship hours and activities. So I look at it as a whole package. I don't really consider the evening course as separate credit unless the student needs it. Because otherwise, you know, the credit hours would just be wasted. Our College of Engineering initially last year, they won't even, you know, kind of allow internship credit just because there's no room. You know, by the time students they graduate, finish the degree, finish the program, it's already 130 some hours. In Florida, at UCF, the graduation requirement is 120 hours. So it's already over, you know, the general requirement for the university for graduation. So we don't really want to add any more to it because students have to pay tuition and so on. So we kind of assign credit based on what the student needs, and that's how we do. And it seems to work well. Otherwise, it will be a challenge to encourage a student to participate in a program when they don't really need a credit. And you know, anyway, that's how we do it. But again, we look at the whole package and try to do things that fits the students' needs. And also, a lot of our students are on financial aid, but the again, you know, earlier you mentioned one of the challenges is the financial expenses. You know, for Florida students, somehow we also have a hard time is to encourage a student to go out of state. But Orlando student, Florida student, they want to stay home. they don't want to go out of state. So that's one of the challenges. But it seems I'm hoping to send more students to the DC. I think every student they come back, they always have very, very positive experience. Yeah. With the experience in DC, and you know, every student they hope to go to DC to do internship on site, virtual. Again, this is a learning curve for everybody, not just for us, but for students as well. But it's good too, a good experience too, because of the technology and the way that we do things these days. You know, for example, Facebook, you know, Google, they all do even the work these days virtually at home, remote. So it's a good experience for them, good practice.
Can I just very quickly throw in one other element that's important for us in terms of money? And that is that at Stockton, we forego a lot of revenue. We bill our students exactly what we get billed by the Washington Center, and we don't add additional fees of any sort. So we actually forego a great deal of revenue. So we take a big hit. And for us, that's important. We're a public institution, but it's also an indication of how strongly the university feels about the program. And that's a commitment that they made, was that they were willing to forego all that revenue. That makes all the difference, because if we added another $2,000 in fees that we kept at the institution, I can assure you a number of students would not be going to Washington. So the willingness of the institution to take a financial hit, and that's very difficult, especially now, right? I think is a matter of importance and something that should be discussed, you know, at the sort of higher levels of the university as well, the college, because that's a tremendous incentive that draws students to the program if they're not paying a lot more, and if they know as well that they're not paying fees, they're just being kept by the institution.
Can I just jump in here? First, apologies, I'm going to have to jump out. So I wanted to echo a couple of things. The silos and problems that you guys all raised, I have them too here at Suffolk and Boston. In terms of how we deal with Michael's original question about transfer versus other credits, students register for Suffolk courses. They're overseen. I am the instructor of record. And those 16 credits were also on a 4 credit per course system, are counted toward GPA as opposed to any other study abroad or study away program. And we've had to fight to maintain that. And in part, it's because it's overseen by an instructor of record and students are doing additional work for me. And we divide the credits a little bit differently. So 12 credits for the internship and career and professional development, 4 credits for the course, the evening course. And the way that we kind of get around the difficulty of the perception that the Washington Center is just for political science or social science students is that students can petition to have those courses count for other requirements, depending on the course that they take. And that's a decision that's based in the department or the program that that course would have been done. So a communications major or a journalism major, for instance, may take a semester in DC at TWC, but the assignments that they do would be keyed toward their major, right? They would be amplifying what they're doing, and hopefully they'd be taking a course that satisfies either a major requirement or a distribution requirement. The other way around it is to have students plan early and save their free electives, bank them so that they can have a semester to do it. And then in terms of affordability, we don't charge students anything in addition to what they would pay for a full semester. Yeah. So we absorb the housing fee in our case. So Suffolk is taking a hit, and in some cases that actually is a benefit for students who otherwise would be paying rent or to stay in dorms. So I think our situations are pretty similar, but the biggest problem has been communicating across silos that the Washington Center can be for everyone. So what I'm hoping to do is to establish in each department similar courses. So, Washington Center in the econ department, Washington Center in the communications department, rather than me pretending to be master of all of those things and working closely with a faculty member in a department. But then again, my department is moving out of the School of Arts and Sciences and starting a whole new school. So my challenge has been was in the last year to push that solution so that the School of Arts and Sciences doesn't forget the Washington Center, and it really does just become a school of public affairs, social science, political science purview. So that's my story. And I am very sorry, but I have to jump off onto another call, but I can't tell you how nice it is to see you guys. And I think the last time was probably at the gala or
Yes.
scholarship dinner, which I suspect is probably not happening this year.
No, it's not happening.
So let's get together for virtual drinks.
There you go.
Yes, I think we need a liaison happy hour
That is an awesome idea.
instead of lab, or in addition to a virtual lab.
Yeah.
You know,
All right. So there is a concrete suggestion. So I don't know. Mari, maybe you can take that and run with it.
We can make that happen.
There you go.
All right. I am in, and unfortunately, I'm also out. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, you guys have all brought up, I think, common themes that we hear across our campuses, right? Silos in political science. Christina and I did a newsletter article. She's talking about the economics department last year for econ. It was like, not just for political junkies. That was the title of all of it. And then I think credit, cost arrangements, they all come up pretty regularly. But I'd like to hear, Paula, from your perspective too, just in your office, are you seeing these same challenges? Are they different? How has that worked out?
very similar challenges. It sounds like I'm a lot like Michael, that I have these courses are under intercollege, which is called INCO is the acronym, and any course, any department can decide if the class applies to their major, so I'm looking with that. But political science does have one course designated for an evening course. But it's a very similar challenges for me. I'm lucky that I don't rely on any tuition dollars from the institution or any funding. Our students, like others, are charged their usual tuition and fees. They'll get 16 credits, same arrangement as Michael. And if we have out-of-state students who are paying a lot of money, that puts just a little buffer in my budget. That's what allows me to travel to DC every semester to see our interns and to attend meetings, so that's great. And I do most of my advertising then. I try to keep it very inexpensive or free. The only thing I've spent money on actually advertising for the program past few years has been social media advertising and advertising on Instagram. You know, I stopped school newspapers a few years ago, printing things, very minimal. But that's where my investment is now, in reaching students who aren't just political science. But I start right at student orientation when students are signing up, and there are many students who have told me that they come to the university just because of the program, that they were looking at a few other places and we offered it. And usually I can rattle off to them like, oh, you're thinking of, you know, sometimes our students looking at UMass, University of Connecticut, maybe Suffolk, and I can say, oh, they have this one, but they don't have that program. And I can, because I know all of you people and who has what, it's a little bit easier to say, oh, we have this and they don't, which is really nice. So.
Yeah, I was hoping, Paula, can you dive more into that? I think you do a really stellar job of marketing the program on campus. And so a lot of our questions from liaisons, like, how do I talk about this? How do I let students know about this opportunity? So if you could dive into that, it'd be great.
Sure. I try to do a combination of old school and social media stuff. I started with, a couple of years ago, just started my own in-house brochure. So it had all the Washington Center information in it, customized to me because students were often confused, and lots of pictures. I don't know if you can see them, but lots of pictures of past students, success stories, quotations, pictures of us at the gala. And I started with that, and I leave them in different places that have waiting rooms and things like that. For my marketing, I very intentionally do different things for students, different platforms for students versus advisors and grown-ups kind of thing, because I'm finding, like most of you, students lurk on Facebook, but they don't do much on Facebook. But I know most of the academic advisors on my campus use Facebook. So when I put something there, it's really geared toward educating the advisors or the parents or the other grown-ups kind of people who might be looking there. And a lot of my alums stay on that Facebook. But I use Instagram to get prospective students and recent students to engage. I also, may I share my screen? Is that allowed? Okay, I'm gonna share. I wanted to show first my Facebook page that I created, my own Washington Center Facebook page. So it contains a tab for each of these items, our university's eligibility requirements, basic overview of the program, very specific, pretty much word for word what I say in a student appointment about application process, some internship site examples, seminars when we're participating in them, and I've recently added a page about alums. I usually spend most of my, oops, not that one, most of my time on the application page in a student appointment, and I basically go through each aspect of the appointment process, the application process, so they really, if they zoned out in a meeting with me or they forgot, they didn't write notes, or their parents are asking questions, I consider it helpful hints like, this is exactly what the Washington Center is asking. This is what they want to see in your statement. These are some helpful hints for the essay. How to get a letter of recommendation, how to get a transcript. Oh, I have to update that because we now charge and we didn't before. This is what's eligibility. Also on that website though, my Twitter feed shows, and this is my office right now. And that's probably the only reason that I have Twitter for the program, because it shows up there and I like to have new pictures rotating, so that changes. I don't find that a lot of our students are on Twitter. I want to show you something else that I've been doing. I'm trying to figure out how to use it. Somebody at another school shared this with me. It's a little silly. It's called the Bitmoji Office. So basically it's a slide on Google Slides with clickable things. This is a connection to my calendar. Here's an advertisement for the Washington Center. This is the other program I run. And I'm thinking of putting it out there in different places. Students who are taking classes virtually and not coming to campus at least feel like this is a person in an office. Doesn't look anything like my real office, but I'm playing around with that and thinking of putting that in different places so students can get more information. Maybe I'm going to add some things to it that look more like my office. The Instagram has been tricky to figure out. Do you like that?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Very impressive.
Yeah, you just get into YouTube and Google either Bitmoji, B-I-T-M-O-J-I, Bitmoji Office or Bitmoji Classroom, and there's all kinds of tutorial videos, and a lot of study abroad offices are doing it. So you can click on posters of different countries, or click here to learn about this video, all kinds of things. So it's just another little thing to just, instead of just sending people links, it's just a little bit friendlier. I did want to mention though my advising and tracking system, because I spent a lot of time with Blair and that, and I know a lot of people have different software, right? Our university just a couple of years ago went to something called Navigate for academic advising software. Lots of campuses use that. I'm using that for some of the tracking. Wonderful to see the notes another advisor might have said to the student, so I can pick up and go with that. But I also have the spreadsheet that I would like to share, mostly because everyone at TWC is always asking me for it. So this is my tracking spreadsheet. So I have, students' names, ID, numbers, and then all these columns fill in what semester they want to go, which of our colleges they want to go, their major, any comments of mine, and then I fill in, have I reviewed their resume? Were they approved by me online? Were they accepted? And then I go through with all the rest of when did I register them? And very often I will just kind of take a chunk of a semester, it looks like it's cooking, and I'll just say, okay, show me everyone who's looking at fall, and then I'll have these students, and I'll share that with Blair, and say, these are the people on my watch list, who do you have on your watch list? And we go back and forth. She sometimes has people for me to add who contacted her directly and didn't go through me, and so that's great with your outreach. But more often than not, I've got a student listed that hasn't started an application yet, and so it gives her staff the ability to contact them and say, I heard you met with Paula. Are you ready to take it to the next step? So I use that spreadsheet. Students don't get onto it until I have had a meeting with them. So I know that they've already had the basic information and they expressed interest to move forward. That being said, still, 30% drop rate, but it's really nice to have these 20 students that we are working together with. So, I may be emailing them, some TWC staff might text them, and we go back and forth, and together we can kind of get them through. It really helped reduce my dropout rate.
And I think that's such an important part, Paula, is that collaboration with Blair and the TWC team, because I think a lot of times you might know of students, we might know of students, but we're not communicating that information. It'll put more work on you because you'll have to meet with all these students where, our admissions counselor might be able to speak with them or vice versa. So no, I think you've done a wonderful job. I know, Kelsey, you do a lot of sharing with Blair as well. And yeah, I think that's so important.
It's great when students started reporting to me that your staff reviewed resumes, because sometimes that's 4 or 5 appointments. So students are so bad at first, like, go back, I want another one. And so to share that is really helpful. I won't approve a resume, I won't approve an application until I've seen all the documents. And so that sometimes slows the students down, but that's in a good way, quality control. But it's very helpful when they say, oh, someone else already looked at my statement and they said it was good.
I send all students to the Career Center and have them work with our students with the resume, because I used to do that. And then they would go to the Career Center, and then they would come back to me. So just to make it simple, I have all students go to the Career Center and have them work with them on the proper format for the resume.
Yeah, collaboration across campus with the TWC team, I think it's all important, because the liaison role is not an easy one. It's a lot to take on, especially when you have students regularly coming to DC, or if you're trying new initiatives across campus. So yeah, I think you guys do a good job of doing a lot of the work, but also delegating or collaborating when needed. I had a follow-up question for Kelsey, and this is sort of along the same lines, but a lot of our partners at larger institutions, state institutions, might say things like, well, I know how to get the students I meet with to know about the program, but I don't know on a larger scale, how do I do that? How do I, create noise about the program? And so I wanted to hear a little bit about your experience. I know some of it you came into, but I know you built a lot on that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll share anything that hasn't already been shared, but I can just kind of talk about what's worked. So like I said, we do have really good buy-in from most departments as well as our institution. Similar to some others on the call, IUP waives tuition and fees for the credits that students receive. We also have some pretty awesome state funding. So students receive, for Pennsylvania residents, a $7,500 scholarship. So with that and the tuition and fees being waived, it ends up being cheaper for students to live and take 12 credits in DC for the summer than it would be for them to do that in Indiana, PA, and the cost of living is not much here. So it ends up, that's a really easy sell for me then. When I can talk about those different financial things that we have put in place, it makes it easy for me to encourage students to go, because I know it's not going to be a burden on them financially. We've had for the last, I don't know how many years, as long as I've been in the Career Center, TWC come up twice a year. We do a good job of plugging whoever our campus rep is into different classrooms. So Blair came up in the fall and spring, and I had her in, I think, 10 to 15 different classrooms over 2 days. We have a large campus-wide info session, and so I think that's helpful. And then we try to, as best as we can during those visits, schedule her time to meet with, or whoever we're working with at the time. We had Kathleen for a while. Time for her to meet with department chairs we maybe don't have a relationship with, deans, ADeans, other institutional partners, so that they can talk about TWC and we can figure out ways to collaborate. So I think that's been really helpful. And our office at the Career Center, we incorporate TWC in all of our messaging. We talk about it at parent and family orientation. I talk about it at every admissions expo, open house, student orientation. So it's something that students hear from the time they step on campus throughout the course of their 4 or 5 years with us. So I think that helps too, just the repetition and hearing it over and over again. But yeah, that's generally, I think, what's worked for us. And so I think it's something that it didn't happen necessarily overnight, but over time we've been consistent with how we've been doing things, and it's really paid off in dividends, because we have a strong showing. It seems like not as much in the fall and spring, as students usually like to stay at IUP, but in the summer, we usually have a really strong showing of students interested in TWC.
No, that's great. You guys definitely do a good job, and the state funding helps. A lot of our schools have state funding, but even those that don't, I think having a good billing arrangement for students, or just making it accessible to students, is important.
Yeah, and we bill students directly through IUP, so we try to keep it as simple as possible for them, so they're not too confused. We try to make it as easy as we can for them, so we don't lose them along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody else have any questions for Paula, Kelsey, or Michael? Anything else you'd want to ask of the group?
I just wanted to point out, I saw that Kay made a couple of comments in the chat about facing some of the same challenges at Central Michigan with getting the word out to all majors, which is completely understandable. I think that's a challenge on a lot of campuses, Kay, and several of you have talked about it. And Chinyen, you sold yourself short. UCF sends a lot of students to TWC, so you shouldn't feel badly about that at all.
Well, actually, summer is a little bit easier for us, but I'm trying. I try to work hard for getting students to participate in the fall semester and spring. Like I say, one of the challenges is right now might be a little bit easier because we have a lot of online, virtual courses. But in the past, if students they are taking full time on campus, they're not going to be able to attend also. And also, in the past, TWC internship generate, kind of full time, a little bit heavy duty than other, regular internship students do it locally. So for them to do the internship physically in DC and then take on full time load, because they have to take maybe 3 other courses plus TWC, that makes it a little bit challenging for UCF students in the past.
Right.
So again, like I said, because of COVID situation, everything is still transitional, still changing. So students may not quite understand about getting doing an internship virtually for the TWC. So we'll see. Hopefully, get better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to keep thinking about the options with virtual offerings. So, if we start to see that there's demand for those opportunities, and also if circumstances push us further in that direction, there may be new options for flexibility that might make it easier.
So right now, right, I do have a question about the timeline right now. I guess right now it would be a good idea, ideal time to start pushing for spring 2021, right? Do you guys have any plans to kind of help us out to promote? I mean, I can do the way that I usually do, but I was just wondering if you guys have any new methods of marketing promotion. Because
we are absolutely planning to help. We're trying to set up calls with everyone to kind of plan out what the year could look like. So I'm not sure if you saw an email from us yet, Chinyen, but you should be receiving one inviting you to set up a call to kind of plan the year ahead. And that will be an opportunity for us to talk about some of the things that we can do from DC. But I think we mentioned to a couple people early on that we're definitely able to do things like host virtual information sessions. We can visit classes virtually if you're so inclined, and if your campus is open to that sort of engagement. We know a lot of schools are conducting virtual fairs of various kinds, and so if that's the right fit, we're willing to give that a shot. We'll also meet with students one-on-one. We're going to have a series of sort of general admissions events that will be taking place virtually throughout the fall that students at any school can attend. So there will definitely be an array of activities, but certainly we want to work with you to figure out what's best for your campus and how we can support you.
Okay, well, actually, I was thinking, if you are kind of holding virtual workshops, information sections for all universities. If you have that kind of workshop, I can probably, if you send that link to me, I can push out to our students to attend or put them in my newsletter, something like that. That would be great. So you don't really have to, because, these days we do everything virtually. You don't have to be physically here in my university or in another university. So if you do a workshop, you can basically open it up to all university students. And that would be good. And we can attend too. It's just in case if students attending and they in case they have a question about how it works with UCF, or some other particular university, so we can address that question, about enrollment, credit, and so on.
Absolutely. Yep. We will be sharing a calendar of events with everyone, so you'll be able to publicize that as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And I do want to acknowledge, I saw Kay asked if anyone uses other social media platforms. Paula, you spoke a bit about Instagram, but does anyone else have success with other platforms outside of Instagram or Facebook too, Paula? Savvy with the social platforms?
I use Twitter, as I mentioned, a little bit, but I think more faculty follow on Twitter. And I did want to mention that for Instagram, what I have done for the past few semesters is I hire one student or one or two students who are going to be in DC, and I put them on the payroll for that semester. And their role is to post 3 times a week to the Washington Center UNH Washington Center Instagram site, and they have to profile their fellow students, as so they get a headshot and a description, like here's Joe and he's a political science major, and here's so and this is where they're interning, in addition to just those mundane, like here I am hanging out the metro, and here I am walking down the street, here are my roommates making pizza. And I give them some free rein, but I've learned over the few years of doing it that I've given them strict guidelines of what they can and can't post about. They have to caption and tag, and so it's not the kind of thing you can just hand off to a student. But if you have job descriptions or you have a social media department on your campus that can help you with guidelines, it makes it a lot easier. And you're all welcome to follow my site if you don't. It's TWC AT-UNH, so TWC at UNH. And I have a student who's just got hired today and sent him the job description. The students have told me, they don't spend more than an hour or two, so they get $10 an hour for doing 2 hours worth of work. But they still say, well, like I didn't have time because I was so busy. I was like, really, you can't post? I mean, I know how much you post personally. So a few years I've hired 2 students and they switched off each week. So it really depends on the student. And if they're the kind of kid who takes pictures everywhere, I let them just take a ton of pictures one week, but then spread them out and post them. Here's the Metro, here's the Washington Monument, here's the Air and Space Museum. And I know that a lot of students follow that account. The hardest part is getting other people to follow the account. And at first I just had other offices and alumni following, and that's not really going to help you recruit. So I rely on those student Instagrammers to tell their friends and other offices to push my posts, to promote them or boost them or whatever the terminology is.
Michael, I was going to say, Michael, do you want to touch on the takeovers we did with your social media office last year too? Because I think they're very similar to Paula's, but in a slightly different way of figuring it out if you don't have a student worker as well.
Yeah, that's actually been a bit of a challenge for me over the years because I have so many other responsibilities. And the primary commitment of time is talking to students and working with them individually on applications and then coming to do site visits and all that. So I've been a little underdeveloped on the social media side of it. Mari's been great in terms of helping us with that. And we met with our media relations folks at Stockton, and you sent some materials to update the website and to attach some social media platforms to that. And we've had some Instagram takeovers as well that have worked pretty well, quite successful. And we have a person in media relations that's been doing that for us a couple of times already. So that's been good, and I'm looking to do more of that. But I think I need to get back to Mari on some of the things that she sent us that we need to implement for this coming fall, hopefully before school starts. But that's an area that we've had limited success with because it's been limited in terms of the platforms, but we'll do more of that. And with her help, that's been tremendous.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've taken away from working with liaisons across the board is everybody has time and capacity for different things, and they have different strengths. And so a lot of that, one of the reasons we wanted to create this community of liaisons is to have a space, for example, Michael, to reach out to Paula and say, hey, I really want to do social media. What are you doing? I need to.
Yeah, I'm going to borrow from her.
Exactly. You guys are the experts. So borrow from each other, talk to each other. We also, at the end, I'll go through this, but there are also ways that our team has adapted what we're doing to try and support a little bit better depending on your needs. I'm cognizant of time, so I am just going to reshare my screen and wrap things up. I think we probably could have talked for another 2 hours, but yeah, I just want to be cognizant that we are starting classes soon and everybody's probably
Oh, yes.
I'll go ahead and share my screen again. So as I mentioned, just usually, like we said, we'd be preparing for our visits to campus. We'd be preparing for Liaison Advisory Board, the annual scholarship dinner. Even though we can't engage with all of you in person this fall, we still have a lot of ways we want to engage virtually, ways we can support you. I won't go through all of these. I think two things that I'd really highlight are, one, get to know your point of contact at the Washington Center. You all should have received an email from your point of contact. Some of you are working with the same people as last year. Some of you have someone new that you're working with because of shifts in our team. But set up a call with them, email yourself to introduce them, pick their brain on things we can do. And then along with that, evaluate your problems and we'll work with you to find solutions. So whether your problem is you're siloed in political science, if your problem is you just don't have time for marketing, whatever that may be, work with us on that. And then last, we've talked about this a lot, but just connecting TWC with your campus and your students. We really want to act as almost co-liaisons to all of you. So while we aren't on campus and we don't work on your campuses, we do want to be able to support in that advising process and that process of meeting with others on campus. So I hope some of you take us up on that, and I look forward to getting to know some of you a little bit better this year. To just wrap things up in terms of next steps, we are going to send a recap email on Monday. It sounds like Paula's social media is really popular, so I'll include some of that in the follow-up email for all of you. If you have questions, if you want to talk about any of the ideas you heard today, reach out to your institutional partnerships manager, reach out to occur@twc.edu, and we can talk about your school specifically and what might work. And then last but not least, we have one more virtual roundtable series to wrap up. We've really enjoyed speaking with you guys this summer, and I'm excited about this last one. We're going to have Menchu, our Chief Marketing Officer, is going to join us and talk about the next generation. So focusing on the next generation of students, the next generation workforce, and the next generation, the Washington Center Career Readiness Programming. As things evolve, how do we evolve how we're serving our students to help them go from college to career? So you can scan the QR code, or we'll send a link to register in the follow-up email, and I hope to see you guys there. Thank you so much for joining us today.